a couple of things. So as the name suggests, it's a journey, right? Human resource development journey. It's a development journey. So it's really a process that we're taking key, stakeholders in the organization, human resources, through a journey that allows them to maximize and enhance their effectiveness, ultimately as HR business partners. And that development journey is so impactful because it really progresses from foundational understanding of diversity and inclusion, of basic concepts, takes them through the work on themselves, on enhancing their cultural competence, through then focusing on enhancing their role effectiveness, and then finally concluding or finalizing with addressing how they can impact diversity and inclusion at the organizational level and sustaining this effort. So it's a very holistic approach. It's one in which we meet people where they are. So we really take a look at first where they are as a team, as individuals. We have a way to conduct our assessment, to inform us where we need to tailor. It's a highly customizable solution, but at the same time with very clear outcomes. And there are 4 distinct phases to it, where, as I described, they can be named as understanding, developing, coaching, sustaining. And one that I perhaps could elaborate a little bit further beyond what I've shared is that piece on coaching, where human resource professionals have such a critical role in the organization. They are the ones that very often are the go-to person around diversity and inclusion issues. They are the go-to person on kind of addressing things that are broken oftentimes. Sometimes maybe don't hear enough of, I would say, appreciation for what's working well, but they are that key partner, and so oftentimes they have to coach others. And as they coach others, they have to have the competence necessary to coach across lines of difference and in all sorts of different situations. So really, it's so important for them to understand, and be aligned on what diversity and inclusion is, why it is important to the organization, understand the business value of that, develop themselves as individuals, once again, coach, as I've just talked about, and then be able to sustain it through ensuring that all people processes have D&I lens. And it's impactful because it really the solution looks at all facets of HR existence, if you will, and facets of their impact in the organization, and just simply accentuates or helps them do what they do already well, maybe even better across lines of difference, in a more strategic way and in a more sustainable way. What makes it unique? Some of it I probably alluded to in talking about why the solution is impactful, because its impact is connected to its uniqueness in a way. So the phased approach is unique because it really allows people to go through stages. It's like any development, when you think about it, it's a staged process. So not stages in theater, stages in having those parts through which you progress. So I believe that we meet people where they are, we uncover where they are as an HR professionals, and then we really focus on those aspects of the journey, understand, develop, coach, and sustain in its totality, allow the individuals, participants to really process through that. There's usually time between the first and the second stage, if you will, and so they have assignments and they are able to process, internalize, and then apply. I think that's what also is unique, what they take away from that particular stage of the journey, and then we come back and we focus on the next step. So it really, what's unique is that it's an approach, it's a phased approach. We don't just come in and try to address everything in one setting, but we allow for the process of internalization and application to take place. I think that's one thing that is unique. It's also unique because we're working with an intact team. That's our goal. And not only we take care of the individual development, or we inspire, I should say, individual development, but we actually, although it's not maybe written so much into our objectives, we actually deal with team development. So recently, when we've done it with a client, actually it was interesting to start hearing back at what it's doing to its team, how it was releasing some things that were locked in, how the individuals started communicating with one another better, how all of a sudden they were just performing not only differently outside, so as those partners to the organization, but they started behaving differently on the team with one another, and the dialogue that it created led to some new ways of approaching the processes and doing their work. So I think that's something that, we don't offer the solution saying, wow, it's going to, take your team per se to another level, but it happens because it's a form of, in a positive sense, intervention for the team, because you are meeting with this team 4 times, at least 4 times, sometimes 6 times, depending how we, modify this solution, how we adjust it to the cultural, reality of the organization. But you meet with them, and if there's a stimulus, there's a reaction, they say in psychology. So bottom line, if we kind of work with this team, there's something that we're gonna, start. There's a process that we're gonna start for that team. So it's fascinating to watch, very rewarding to watch, because then they not only operate more effectively as individuals, as HR business partners, but they also start operating more effectively as a team. And I think that's unique. And it's unique because finally, oftentimes you see solutions that will either, I think, focus on, that's what becomes clear to me as I'm talking to you right now. Sometimes there's solutions out there in the business world that either focus on role effectiveness. So how can we build more, better strategy? How can we develop, a more effective strategy? And then you have solutions that focus on competence, so that people, how can we be better leaders? So let's focus on leadership training, right? I think the solution blends both, which is, I think, the power of it. So we're looking at both cultural competence and role effectiveness. And when you think about this, you can't really address one in isolation from the other. And I think that's unique. When you think about HR professionals, and I've shared already, they play a critical role. I think maybe sometimes they are almost not appreciated enough for all the work that they do, or for the meaningful the work that they have. And at the same time, a couple of things that we see in this world take place in the world of diversity and inclusion. Sometimes they are either not perceived as business partners, or they are not operating as business partners. For whatever the reasons, there are barriers to them operating as HR business partners, which is where they need to be. And what also we see sometimes is the fact that although these are always individuals that I find are driven by wanting to do the right thing, supporting others, helping others, what may not necessarily always be the case is sort of advanced cultural competence that is needed to do this work effectively. And all of us, me included, we all have to continue the journey of developing our own cultural competence. I'm no different, you're no different. We all have to stay on this journey. Nobody arrives. We say that if they arrive, they should go back, you know what I'm saying? So HR professionals also have to remain on the journey of really enhancing their cultural competence. And the reality is there's even more expectations of them to be even more culturally competent. So oftentimes people look up to them to see whether behaviors are modeled, or whether the way they interact with others as they are approached with all sorts of different issues, whether they can navigate through those issues in a culturally competent way. So there's I would say, higher need for HR professionals to be culturally competent sometimes, just like there's a higher need of leaders to be culturally competent, because they have to model something for others. And they have to have that advanced cultural competence in order to coach others and in order to sustain this effort. So, many of us, if we don't have to coach others, if we don't have to start impacting the processes, I'm not going to say we can get away, but it's sort of like we can get away with basic cultural competence, if you will. I mean, I think we all should strive towards always enhancing it. But there are some key roles in your organizations where you cannot operate effectively without advanced cultural competence. And I think HR professionals are such group of stakeholders. And I think oftentimes they're just expected to have it and not given the room to develop it. It's almost like you're an HR professional, you should know it, you should get it, you should do it well. And sometimes they don't have the opportunity, to go through this work. So I think that's why it's important that HR professionals, there are certain key stakeholders that really have to, become extra culturally competent, if you will. They have to have that deeper, more advanced work. And I think, let's pause, remind me the question.
Need.
and why do we need this?
Why is it needed?
Okay. And the second piece of why HR professionals need it, you know, is I think I spoke to advanced cultural competence being needed for them to coach others. HR professionals are the ones that are so heavily involved in creating and modifying and adjusting people processes. Imagine an organization when you have people who determine the processes such as attraction, you know, recruitment, retention, succession planning, reward planning, who have no cultural competence. That probably would be a miserable organization to be. You have to, if people make decisions like that about processes, and processes are not just processes impact people, they impact organizations. If you don't have that advanced lens, diversity, if you don't understand how diversity inclusion sort of needs to be integrated into those processes, and how, you know, those processes can either set some people up for success or derail them, how we can actually maximize the potential of all talent versus just limited talent, how we can truly, you know, create an environment for innovation and business results through the people processes. You have to have cultural competence, and you have to have a better, higher sense of diversity and inclusion weaving into that. That's why it's needed, because HR professionals' role is critical, and they need to know how to partner with everybody else in order to make that happen. And so I think this is why it's